I don't know why, but I'm on an NES kick right now. Maybe it's just so I can adhere to a review schedule, who knows. But anyway, this time around, I'm playing one of the most notorious games on the system, Silver Surfer. Perhaps you've seen one of the many quote-unquote angry reviews on the game, most famous probably the AVGN episode. If that's what you're looking for here, I'm sorry, you're not gonna get it. The game may have a few problems, but it really isn't a bad game in any way. You play as the Surfer himself, of which I've never really heard of. Then again, I'm not the biggest comic fan and don't know most of the heroes, or villains for that matter. I don't know what the Surfer's power is. I don't know who Galactus is, who sends the Surfer on his mission. I don't know who any of these villains are. And I don't know what this mysterious cosmic device that the Surfer must obtain is, and how it will possibly prevent world chaos. I'm just gonna roll with it. When you start the game, you get to choose from any of 5 villains. Each villain contains 2 standard-sized stages and 1 smaller boss level. Each stage is either a side-scrolling or vertical-scrolling shooter. I will say that I am typically not good at these types of games, and I wasn't able to get far without using the good old Game Genie code for infinite lives. Sorry if that upsets any purists out there, but if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be able to show you the entire game, and therefore the review would be kinda lackluster. As a Silver Surfer, you're just surfing in the air and throwing something. You know, I don't even know how to best explain this. So instead of just making shit up, let's just show how the game works. As I said, there's 2 different types of stages, horizontal and vertical. Both work fairly similarly, although I found the vertical ones to be a bit on the easier side. You have infinite shots, although a turbo controller is almost required unless you have a steel group of fingers to keep mashing the A button to shoot. As for the B button, it's only used to rotate your orb around, which is a secondary power-up that is lost upon death. And death is something that you're probably going to be very acquainted with. That's because you get only 1 hit before you perish. And dying resets everything back to the starting values, with the only saving grace being that there are a few checkpoints that can be passed. What kind of power-ups do you get? First off, you can find B icons. They act as smart bombs and destroy everything on the screen. Honestly, I usually forgot that I had these unless I had to start a new life a bunch of times because the screen got hectic. I think you can have a max of 5 of these. The next is the orb. This acts as an option, which can be manipulated around the surfer to shoot in different directions. Although important in their own way in the horizontal stages, they are even better in the vertical stages, as you can get a second one to fire in both directions. If you can get one of these and hang on to it, your survival rate will increase exponentially. The final power-up, and the most frequent one, is the F. I'm assuming this stands for firepower, as it increases the shot quantity and power of your projectiles. At the maximum level of this power-up, you'll be able to mow down anything that comes your way, which is a huge plus, until you smack a piece of the environment and die. And that leads me to what is probably the most frustrating part of the game. The stage itself can frickin' kill you. It's bad enough that the enemies can range from the standard oddballs to the strange-looking, erratically moving ones. But when you have to be pixel perfect when navigating the terrain, that just increases the stress level. You might move to dodge an enemy and inadvertently smack a wall and die. The vertical stages are worse, as you almost have to guess on what is passable and what is not. There is a way to figure it out though, and that's why a turbo controller is almost a necessity. Your bullets will stop at anything that is deemed an obstacle. So if you're constantly firing, you'll be able to see what you need to avoid. I mentioned earlier that you can choose the 5 villains in any order. The manual does recommend who to save till later, and it's best to start with Reptile, as the stage is a nice way to ease into the challenge of the game. The enemies are somewhat predictable, and if you die, it's not too terribly difficult to get going again. But taking on the harder stages, where the enemies troll you with their movement being almost random, and dying is going to get you in some serious trouble unless you can uncover some much needed power-ups. All of this isn't to say the game is bad. Although the enemies seem random, they really aren't, and are scripted each time. So if you get to a troublesome spot, you can memorize where they're going to be, and where you should fly to avoid them. It just constitutes a challenge that you may not be prepared for, and let's face it, that's what games used to be. A challenge. The graphics aren't too bad. There's some decent visual detail to the environments, again, especially in the vertical segments. Of course, the detail could prevent you from seeing the enemies or projectiles, but it still looks good. The music though, although there's only 2 or 3 tracks, both are freaking awesome. They're catchy and stuck in my head for a bit. I'd even dare to say that they are some of the best music tracks on the system. I'd wake up in the morning and have the songs still stuck in my head. Sadly, the bosses don't get anything special, but even so, they're still a joy to listen to. And that's Silver Surfer. Does it deserve its notoriety? Absolutely not. Although a difficult game, it's not a bad game, and for someone like me that sucks at shoot-em-ups, I still found it to be fairly fun. Of course, now that I finished the game for the review, I'm going to keep trying to complete it without the infinite lives, but I can definitely see myself revisiting this game frequently. It's definitely worth checking the game out if you have an NES and are a fan of the genre. Just ignore all of the negativity you may have heard about the game, as again, it may have a few faults, but it's still a worthy game to play. Final score? 8 out of 10. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.